Hi everyone, John Sinclair here for another 7-minute morning. Today we're going to focus on mobilizing the pelvis and the lower back. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to rub and scrub around some key landmarks on the lower back. So let's take your knuckles. And what I mean by rub and scrub is we're going to scrape the connective tissue on the bones. So a couple of real cool things happen in the brain when we do this. My brain is detecting pressure. The friction that I'm creating is creating heat and circulation and fluid dynamics to move to these particular areas that I'm scrubbing. So we're going right along the sacrum bones, because if this sacroiliac joint is well hydrated, then it will move better, and that's the whole essence of what we're doing here today. So we're scrubbing the sacroiliac joint, okay? Then we're going to go to the lumbosacral joint, and we're going to drive our knuckles left to right where the top of the sacrum meets the lumbar joints. We're going to go across there. Okay, and you can use a foam roller if that's easier for you. I just tend to use things that I know that are available, like my knuckles. So now we're going to go to the outside of the hip. There's this little knob on the outside of the hip called the greater trochanter. A lot of this musculature passes across that landmark, so we're going to hydrate that piece. Fill the fascia up with water so that that connective tissue creates space at the joints that we're working on and gives it a little bit more room to move. Okay, then you're going to take your knuckles, go to the front bones, right on the front of the hips, and we scrub them. Okay, let's take you through our first mobilizer. A mobilizer is a slow, subtle motion. Today we're going to drive from the pelvis, so the motion is going to be the pelvic bones are moving forwards and backwards. So it's slow and subtle. We're not trying to move fast. We're not trying to move far. Okay, just slow and rhythmical. The same time it takes me to move forward is the same time it takes me to move backwards. Okay, put the other foot forward. And the reason why we stagger your stance at the start is we're going through what we call pelvis decoupling. So when one foot goes forward, it naturally rotates one pelvis on the other. That will free up a little bit of space in the lumbar spine than if my feet were symmetrical. So I tend to always start with a staggered stance first, and then we work to a symmetrical stance after that. Just a little progression I've found, being someone that has back pain or has gone through back pain. I find that that works a little better for me. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to switch back to that stance, and this time we're going to tilt your hips side to side like you're a little teapot. So notice that when I drive my pelvis, my feet and ankles are reacting, and my thoracic spine, or my upper back, is moving in opposition of the pelvis. Okay, then we stagger the other side. Same drill. Okay, then we go back to stagger. This time we're going to rotate. Big pop happened there for me. Liberated some space in my left hip joint. Okay, then the other side. Again, the pelvis is kind of driving the motion. And as you'll sense, we're feeling some motion happening in the hip capsule. So we'd say the pelvis is driving on the femur, and the femur is just reacting to it. Okay, but it's also, you're feeling probably your feet are rotating a bit too, if you're not in shoes. If you're in shoes, different reaction. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go into a wide stance. We're going to take you through all those just to influence a little bit different tissues. Okay, so same motion. We're going to go forwards, backwards. The pelvis is driving the motion, but we're symmetrical and wide with your stance. Now let's go side to side. You'll feel a different contribution of what is stretching, what is being loaded as you go from side to side. Again, let the pelvis be your motion, okay? And then we rotate. And you'll notice that when I changed my stance, I got a different feeling in the pelvis, in the back, and in the hip. And that's all good. We want a variable response in these mobilizers because we aren't made up of just one way of doing things or just being able to move in one direction like we sometimes do in the gym. We need to move in variable directions. Otherwise we just look like Lego people, wouldn't we? Okay, so now we're going to go into a narrow stance. So we're altering our stance again, and we're going to drive that motion. Okay, and then we go side to side. Again, feels like a little less contribution in the hip, more in the pelvis when I go more narrow. And rotate. Okay, and the last one, we'll put your feet about hip width apart, and we're just going to drive into some circumduction. Doing a circular clockwise path or counterclockwise path, and then the other direction. There you go. Now you should feel that when you move now, you have a little bit more freedom of motion in the pelvis. That should take some stress off the lower back. Hopefully get you started on your day. Thanks for joining us. Give us some feedback. Let us know how you felt about the pelvic and low back mobilizers.